more people will join us. So welcome to the Salt Extensions Community Working Group R. My name is David Murphy. I've taken over from Alyssa, who moved on to another position. I was hoping to make last month's meeting, but had a conflict with a doctor's appointment that I had to attend. One of those ones you can't defer. So I posted the agenda, and that the agenda basically is the announcements of me taking over. I cut and pasted a lot of what was in from the previous one that Alyssa had, which was what is the plan for core extensions? Will core maintainers be responsible for the extensions, and when are they coming out? And my reply that I'll be posting is yes, the core maintainers will continue to maintain those extensions. They're not going to come out till the 3008 release. That we need to set up infrastructure, etc., to pull them out, testing, documentation, installation methods. Well, we're going to be using Copier for that. So that is the good news, that we're going to be using the exact same infrastructure that the community is using. I think it makes the most sense to have the one tool that everybody utilizes and uses, so that whether it's a core extension, community extension, it's going to be treated the same. As part of that, I started yesterday to use the copier tool to pull out the Cassandra, and I had noticed that some of the Great Purge had mixtures of Cassandra files, some in core, some core extensions, and some in community support, which absolutely made no sense to me. In that, if you're going to have a Cassandra extension, it should contain all of the files. Okay. So there's obviously cleanup in those text files from the Great Purge that needs to be done. And that's the intention I had to do. Using Copier, I noticed there were a couple of additional files that we needed to get out, and those were in the PR that I submitted against it. Things like notices, contributing, code of conduct, pretty generic boilerplate, but I think those should also go in. And John Luke is looking at that as well. And in addition, once you get the extension, how do you get it submitted to the repository? So he's split up the PO, and it's now in two parts, where that's an additional one for once you got your extension locally, how do you get it up into the repository? What's the process? And I also added to that that we need to, once you have it in, how do we get it up on PyPI as well? So I think going through it is the best way of doing the work, shows you the places that need to be improved. Then the next one was that from today's Discord, you pointed out, Max, that we hadn't deprecated it. I thought we had. We had obviously discussed it. Shane's now gotten our SREs to go get it deprecated and add that note, redirecting people to Copier. As you pointed out, that should be the way it goes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
I had a couple of people asking questions why nothing does work.
Yeah. Yeah, the Copier tool is just day and night. Given the cuts that we've had in the team, there's probably not going to be anybody to support the old tool anyway to fix it. So it just makes sense. And Copier is so much better. The next item on the agenda was which push should people be able to use to follow to include fresh extension out of Portal 1 into the org. And I've updated that the core tool is deprecated, archived a message redirecting users to the Superior Copier tool, showing links. Where are we in the process of module migration? Anyone actually work importing modules? And how can we minimize friction in this process, most effectively prioritize work? So I mentioned I'm doing the Cassandra extension and finding places for improvement and issuing POs. A lot of us were focused on getting the recently SALT 3006.9 released, which was Tuesday. And we're working to get 3007.2 out. Once that's done, people are going to get more focused on getting into the pulling out the extensions for 3008. So the next item on the agenda I had was, is there anything that can be done to ensure the organization stays healthy in the absence of Nick, which was there from Elisa's, Jennifer last year. And my comment is Nick has unfortunately has been MIA for several months now, but we have Max and Jean-Luc were made as co-maintainers. Is that correct, Max?
Yes.
Great. One of the things I noticed, I updated the community pages with the Discord links, and on the actual extensions page itself, the README, we need to update that where it's got SALT community Slack, and we need to make that Discord. So I got it in for the community page README, and I looked at it this morning, and my English is a bit bad in the way the sentence reads, so I'll need to adjust that. But you could probably pull the link and update the welcome page on SALT extensions, as I don't believe I have rights to do that. Melissa gave me rights last night for the community repo. So that is something that needs to get done. Just note that. And the last item that I had was should the SALT extension to be retired of the copy template. And I got that done. Shane took an action to deprecate in favor of the Superior Court tool. So that was the agenda items that I had. And I was wondering, does anybody else have agenda items that they want to bring up? I requested in the Discord channel yesterday, and I apologize for such short notice, but I still had the calendar date for the next meeting being like August 15th, not noticing that we moved it to the first Thursdays. That's probably because I didn't attend the last two meetings due to various issues. So not as much time for people to add to the agenda. I hope to be better next time and put it out a week ahead of time. But does anybody have any items they'd like to bring up? No.
If we have nothing else, we can discuss basically, I posted a couple of days ago to SALT extension Discord channel the Reddit thread where people discuss their experience with extensions, and it's pretty bad. And if we have some time, maybe can we discuss how to streamline the process? So, like, let's imagine that 3008 is released. How many people will be surprised in a negative way that the modules are gone and no longer there? And what we can do to improve that? And which guides or pointers we should place to help people either to find the migrated modules into proper extensions or direct them to the porting guide. Basically, the tools, the publishing process, Salt extensions, GitHub organization, how to submit their repository, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I expect this to be a major issue, as you raised, as a lot of people are still not even moved over to the Wonder architecture. I'm still seeing bugs for classic packaging and people wanting to get fixed in classic packages which are end of life. And so we're probably going to have to, when 3008 comes out, to have a complete list of where extensions, of which parts of Salt having moved to extensions, and then possibly a tool which pulls those extensions in directly so that it's as minimal headache for people to use as the way it was in 3006, 3007. That's the only way I can see things being easier. Now, in that list, there's things that we could probably ignore or comment out. There's a bunch of older file systems like Moose FS, which I don't think anybody is using. Things like that, which we should be okay with. But there's probably going to be a core list of the extensions that are either core and maintained or community maintained that we need to pull in, and have that happen automatically as part of the install, so that while they're being maintained in other repos, the functionality is going to remain the same. But that's the thought. Question will be, or proof of the pudding is in the eating, so getting it done will be another matter. But I think that might be one approach that we could do, which would minimize the amount of headache that people will have when migrating to using 3008 from 3006 or 3007. What do you think of something along those lines, Max?
That would be like super good. Yeah. If there's some automation, but still, like, the amount of modules is huge. It's like 750 files, and it's a long tail, you know. Some person somewhere using might be using that kind of module.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And my thinking was not so much about porting as much as possible, but providing some guides and documentation for people to self-direct or help them port, make their own extensions, like basically to help improve the community
Yep.
size.
Yep.
And another thought I have, basically, how we can avoid maintainership burden for the Salt extension organization. So basically, Salt core team has moved the extension so they don't have to maintain them. But now we have like a couple of folks who will be responsible for merging pull requests, and maybe we can delegate more to whoever wants to maintain a particular repository, and only work on tooling and infrastructure and CI pipelines.
Yeah. Well, part of the original thinking was that people who are interested in the extension would get to maintain it. Like people who are using it for business and stuff will be interested in maintaining it. And most of the extensions don't really require a lot of work once they're up and running. Apart from, hey, we're now using Python 13, etc. And something got deprecated in Python. But that the heavily used ones would get a lot of eyeballs, and the least used ones probably wouldn't get as much changes, but they're not used much, and so you don't get a lot of maintenance. As part of the work for the extensions, what we also did was look at the in Salt itself, which modules or files had the most number of changes, in helping to determine whether that should be core or should be community. And we tended to keep most of the stuff that's getting a lot of eyeballs and changes inside Salt itself. But some of the extensions were basically hardly used at all. I mean, some of that code was hardly used at all, and those probably would be in extensions. Similarly, once it's up and running, most people will, as I said, change in Python. They might need to get updated, and that would be it. But yeah, it's a case of we've got to drastically reduce size of the Salt core team, and so it's releasing burden and hopefully getting a much more stable core that the core stuff would be pretty much really good, and that can give time then for looking at extensions. But it is a valid point for what to do when an extension has basically deprecated because software does rot. It's never a case of standing still, or if it's unused, nobody's going to notice the rot anyway. But yeah, I'll add that in to the agenda of issue, something to be looked at. Yeah, as to having the full list, things I pulled out, not everybody's using Napalm. So yeah, that probably needs to be looked at as possibly broken down into different areas for extensions to be automatically pulled in, and have it that the different areas called out as part of the installation or readmes or whatever for 3008, so that people know, hey, I'm using Napalm or whatever. I'll pull in this kind of stuff, or I'm doing databases. I'll pull in this stuff, or I'm using Bodo. I'll pull in this group of extensions. Might be a way to split that egg.
What is the best way for, let's say, someone wants to maintain a new extension or port extracted module into an extension? What is the best place for this person to ask to promote the repository to GitHub organization? Is it Discord or
Yeah, I would
GitHub
think
discussions?
The Discord community channel
Okay.
would probably be the best place, because then other people who have done extensions can give advice.
So basically, if someone volunteers to maintain an extension, he has to ask in Discord channel whether the repository can be promoted to GitHub organization, right? And
Yeah.
then we will provide him with necessary permission to maintain this particular repo within
Yeah.
the organization. Okay.
And that was one of the things on the copier command. It all worked really nice, and I now have a source extension for Cassandra, but there's no details on how to get it into the GitHub organization for Salt extensions. And so that's part of what John Luke split out of my PR, so that it's another task for Salt extensions as to how to get it into the GitHub repositories for Salt extensions so that it can be maintained and have people be the declare the maintainer of that part. Because I'm not sure, I don't really see how I can go at it without what the process is for getting it stuck in there. So I'll be having discussions with Jean-Luc to see what way that's been done in the past and get that formalized. And the same reasoning, once you have your Salt extension in the Salt extensions thing, how to get it up into PyPy. A set of instructions there so that it can appear in PyPy, because people are going to want to pip download it. Pip install it. And that's the only way you're going to get feedback is from people using it. So you got to be able to upload to PyPy.
Isn't it work several already? I thought that there are CI pipelines that do that. Or it's a documentation issue.
Well, it's a documentation issue because
okay.
To be honest, I haven't searched thoroughly, but there wasn't anything that jumped out at me as, hey, this is how you do it. It sounds like you have the same question I have for Jean-Luc. How did we get this done in the past? And I don't know if it was Nick that did it, most probably, and not really getting any responses out of Nick. Except Shane did, to get you and Jean-Luc added as co-maintainers. I tried the same email address, but
he respects me.
Nothing yet. He doesn't like guys with beards. That's it. So, yeah, we've got to figure that part out, because we're definitely going to be getting a bunch of extensions coming up. We need to get it documented. So the process steps to do. Because once I can get it in, then I can start doing the CI. Get that Cassandra. I think carrying that through is, for me, will highlight places that we've got rough edges that need to be smoothed.
Okay, I will also try to go through the process of publishing an extension, and will keep
Yeah.
my notes or friction points.
Yeah, friction points. That's a really good way of putting it. Hey, does anybody have
May need-
anything?
Well,
Go
just
ahead.
we may need to decide how much detail we're going to go through, because part of it is also publishing to PyPy, right? And are we going to document how to do that, or will we just refer them to PyPy documentation?
I think the best thing is how I did it part. Those kind of steps. Because yeah, they can go read the PyPy documentation, but then they've got tons of documentation to wade through that may not be relevant to what they actually, the steps they need to do. So calling out those steps, I think, is a lot better. With a link out, shout out to the actual PyPy documentation, of course. Kind of like simple steps for more advanced. Here's the link.
I like that.
Another part of the process we need to try was also highlighted in the same Reddit thread, and it's about documentation for extensions.
Yeah, that some extensions are not providing decent documentation. I think the thing we've got to do there is when people are adding extensions to the repository, that as part of that review process, we look to see if there's adequate documentation, and if there isn't, pointed out to the person that this is an area they need to improve. So that, I think, should be part of the adding something to the Salt extensions repos. I mean, don't have to go through every piece of documentation, but a quick scan to see, well, that looks like they got decent instructions, kind of stuff. Not that the instructions work perfectly or whatever, but they've at least got some documentation saying how the item gets used.
Yeah, it's not so about the documentation quality, it's more about the publishing process. I think previously we settled on using GitHub Pages to host the documentation for every extension.
Okay.
And I haven't looked into that. I plan to, but I think CI pipelines should also have the documentation build process automated. So every repo gets its own GitHub Pages with something, and we can improve the documentation later.
Okay. Gotcha. That's a good idea. I'll go back over the recording of this and try to get accurate notes for the points that you've raised, Max. Is there anything else anybody would like to bring up? Okay. Next meeting is September 5th. Hopefully we'll have some answers to the points you raised for the next meeting. Hopefully we'll get some more attendees. And I'll see if I can get John Luke to attend the next one.
He prefers to be asynchronous.
He's only 7 hours, 6 hours, no, 6 hours ahead of Mountain Time. no, make that 8 hours ahead. So, yeah, I guess it's 6 o'clock in France. But it would be good to have them at least pop in once in a while. If there's nothing else, I'll end the meeting and I'll get these notes up as quick as I can. And hopefully we'll have some answers before the next meeting for a number of these items that were raised. Okay, I'll stop the recording here if nobody has anything else they want to add. All right.